As Daenerys is walking William down the hall that he normally recognizes, they go to this one passage that would look like it goes to the back area where she comes out on the throne. But then she unlocks some type of panel after he sees a staircase where there's a flag. Oh, I remember this area. This is where I kind of, even though it was before the law was passed, about certain restricted information to help you with your sense of loss before we had the, you know, secret ritual. Yes, I know. But we're not going there. We're going in here. If I'm to add you to the Hall of Genealogical Records, as I said, William, there's much you don't know about me, and you're still a bit naive, which I do like about this. You need to know something about, now, the history of my house. Well, I guess I can't argue with a most beautiful queen who's willing to teach me. I'd be honored to learn whatever and all there is to know about your House of Targaryen. Well then, follow me, William. And she takes him inside this room, and it looks kind of bland, white walls, but there's bookcases. And then she points to one at the far end. These bookcases, of course, are restricted and are under lock and key anyway. Those hold palace records. But these over here, and she takes him by the hand and leads him to what looks like something like, in his world, a picnic table, are those of things that I keep, that affects the House of Targaryen. Oh, so is the historical wedding of our getting married in there? Yes. Oh, wow. You like this? Yes, I never thought I'd be. Well, I didn't think I was going to be that historical. Well, that's okay, William. Visionary said that there are great things to expect from you, and I still believe that the gods did send you, though you're still learning about our religious beliefs. I think in time you will come around. But for right now, as far back as I can, you need to learn about the history of the House of Targaryen. Are you ready? Sure. So she pulls out a scroll. This first one here is going to be rather short. There was not a whole lot of information on him. But this is the top of the family tree of the House of Targaryen. This one, of course, is Lord Aenar Targaryen, also known as the Exiler. He is the first king of House of Targaryen in Dragonstone. All right. So then she goes into the introduction. Aenar Targaryen. Lord Aenar Targaryen, known as Aenar the Exile, was a nobleman of House Targaryen from the Valyrian freehold. He was the father of Daenerys the Dreamer and Gaemon the Glorious. The history shows that 12 years before the doom of Valyria in 114 BC, Aenar's daughter, Daenerys the Dreamer, foretold the destruction of Valyria. In response to this, Aenar sold his holdings in the Valyrian freehold and the lands of the Long Summer, and moved with all his family, wealth, slaves, and dragons to Dragonstone, a bleak island citadel beneath the Dragonmont, a smoking mountain in the narrow sea. The Targaryens were far from the most powerful of the Dragon Lords, and their rivals in Valyria saw their flight as an act of cowardice. However, because Aenar had moved his family away from Valyria, the Targaryens were the only Dragon Lords to survive the doom and the following century of blood. Aenar ruled as Lord of Dragonstone until his death, after which his son, Gaemon, inherited the rule. By the time of the War of the Five Kings, it is believed visions written down by Daenerys, Aenar's daughter, before the doom, were in a book called Signs and Portents that is now lost. Archmaester Marwyn claims he found 3 pages from it in his Book of Lost Books. Daemon Targaryen, son of Aenar. Lord Daemon Targaryen, known as Daemon the Glorious, was the second Lord of Dragonstone of House Targaryen. Little is known about Daemon, yet the history shows that Daemon was the son of Lord Aenar Targaryen and had at least one sister, Daenerys Targaryen. Daemon was married to Daenerys, and together they had at least 2 children, Aegon and Aelena, who eventually inherited the rule of Dragonstone from Daemon. As a forethought and note, it was commonplace for a brother to marry a sister. Daenerys Targaryen. Daenerys Targaryen, called Daenerys the Dreamer, was the daughter of Lord Aenar Targaryen, a nobleman from the Valyrian freehold. A little bit more history is given on her, as she was also the first queen of Dragonstone. The history shows that when Daenerys was still a maiden, she had a powerful prophetic dream showing the destruction of Valyria. Her father, Lord Aenar Targaryen, moved his family and all of their belongings to Dragonstone, an island in the narrow sea off the eastern coast of Westeros. With them, they took 5 dragons. When the doom of Valyria came, 12 years later, House Targaryen was the only family of dragon riders which survived. Daenerys was married to her brother, Daemon. Their children were Aegon and Aelena Targaryen. In recent events, during a time known as a Feast for Crows, by the time of the War of the 5 Kings, it is believed that visions written down by Daenerys before the doom of Valyria were in a book called Signs and Portents that is now lost. Archmaester Marwyn claims he found 3 pages from it in his Book of Lost Books. Doom of Valyria. In this here, it's a history that breaks the point between the once high-tech race of Valyrians, though they did have dragons, kind of similar to the legendary myth of the humans, known as the City of Atlantis, where they had high-tech machines way ahead of time from the humans of world Earth. And this would be similar to that now, though not really documented, as a matter of opinion. For Valyria, it was much similar. They had their highest advancements, though they still chose to ride dragons. The Doom of Valyria, often called the Doom, was a cataclysm of an unspecified nature that caused the collapse of the Valyrian freehold, which had been prospering for 5,000 years. It occurred approximately a century before Aegon's conquest of Westeros in 114 BC. Spells, knowledge, and recorded history were lost in the Doom, and the century of blood followed the disaster. In the foreshadowing, 12 years before the Doom, Lord Aenar Targaryen's maiden daughter, Daenerys the Dreamer, had a powerful prophetic dream along with visions. Valyria would be destroyed. Foreseeing the doom, she convinced her father to leave Valyria before the cataclysm. Aenar sent sail, moving House Targaryen and their 5 dragons to the island of Dragonstone. Other houses of the narrow sea of Valyrian descent include the Valyrians and Driftmark and the Celticars of Claw Island. The Doom. On the day of the Doom, every hill for 500 miles exploded, filling the air with ash and smoke and fire, which killed even dragons. Earthquakes destroyed palaces, temples, and towns. While lakes boiled or turned to acid, 14 flames, the fiery mountains of Valeria, sent molten rock 1,000 feet into the air, and red clouds rained down dragon glass. A cataclysm fragmented the Valerian Peninsula surrounding Valeria into numerous smaller islands, creating a smoking sea between them. East of Valeria, Velos and Gossel, on the Isle of Cedars, were destroyed by a tsunami. It is commonly believed that the doom was a natural calamity caused by the eruption of the 14 flames. Some symptoms believe the polytheistic Valerians delve to the 7 hills. Alternatively, Septim Bark and some Macers believe that Valerian spells controlling the 14 flames faltered. Other explanations include the curse of Garwin the Great, the fire Arholer of infighting dragon lords, assassinating fire mages. In the aftermath, much of Essos fell into chaos after the doom. During the Century of Blood, the Volantines unsuccessfully considered themselves the heirs to Valeria, often waging war against other free cities. Dothraki conquered many of the islands surrounding the Dothraki Sea, and the last Ibonese king was thrown down. The slaver cities of Slaver's Bay regained their independence. Some dragon lords in Bliss and Pyrosh survived the doom, but they were soon killed along with their dragons. Dragon Lord Orion declared himself Emperor of Valeria and led a host from Quohar toward Valeria, but he and his followers were not seen again. Tommen II Lannister, King of the Rock, vanished while sailing to Valeria with his blade. Brightroar and Garyon Lannister later disappeared while searching for Brightroar. It is thus said that no one has returned from a journey to the ruins of Valeria, and even the most hardened sailors shudder at the thought of sailing to ruined Valeria. Many of Valeria's secrets, such as magic, the method of creating Valerian steel, and ancient record, were lost in the doom. The disaster is represented in art across the known world. Songs are sung of the doom. Lord Aegon of Dragonstone of House Targaryen. Just briefly, there is not a whole lot of information that mentions anything about Lord Aegon of Dragonstone. Doesn't say that he's had any heirs. And if he did marry, it would have probably most likely been Elena, spelled with 2 L's, who is also a Targaryen. Because again, it was commonplace to marry cousins, or even a sister for that matter. But thus is known that they carried on the line after Daenerys the Dreamer had led people to victory, thus becoming a hero for the House of Targaryen from the Valerian Doom. So that is all the information that is available at this time. Lord Maeghan Targaryen, Prince of Dragonstone of House Targaryen. Once again, very little information is given about Lord Maeghan. In fact, very little was found, other than the fact that it says Lord Maeghan Targaryen was a member of House Targaryen and Lord of Dragonstone. He was the son of Aegon Targaryen and Elena Targaryen. Other than that, no other information is available at this time. However, because it would be self-evident that there was no heirs, and it doesn't appear that he even took unto himself a wife to have heirs, he was then succeeded by one known as Lord Aerys of Dragonstone. Lord Aerys now, of course, must have had somebody, though it was not certain, because obviously certain offspring did show up. Now, perhaps this was a wedding in secret that was never to be recorded. But in any case, 3 children were born from Lord Aerys of Dragonstone's lineage. One was Alex, spelled Aelx, pronounced in the Valyrian way, Targaryen of Dragonstone. Then there was Balon Targaryen and Daemon Targaryen. This is the best known information that is available at this time, and it would appear that that is all the information that is available. So, from there, only one of the 3 that has been mentioned will actually give continuance to the lineage, which will come from the lineage of Daemon. Daemon Targaryen was a member of House Targaryen, the 3rd son of Lord Aerys Targaryen of Dragonstone, and the father of Aerion Targaryen. He became Lord of Dragonstone. His son Aerion succeeded him. Valeria Valerian of Dragonstone, and first King Aerion Targaryen of Dragonstone for House of Targaryen. Starting with Valeria Valerian of Dragonstone, once again, no information is available. However, it is strongly believed that she is a cousin or relative and one of few survivors of the Valerians, as much as the Valerians, that were led under the belief of Daenerys the Dreamer to safety before the doom of Valyria had struck. In any case, it would strongly show that there was some kind of connection between her and what is considered to be the first King Aerion Targaryen of Dragonstone for House Targaryen. It should also be noted that after their betrothal, it would be considered then that the House of Targaryen was officially established, although Daenerys the Dreamer and her father and another had escaped to safety to Dragonstone and were rulers there. They merely represented the Targaryen ways, but was not an official house as of yet. Soon, the commonplace of establishing the House of Targaryen with a position of king and also prince or second in line to a higher throne for all realm of kingdoms was yet to be established. So at this point then we go on to what is considered to be the first King Targaryen of Dragonstone for House Targaryen. Now, under his reign, we show that Aerion Targaryen, son of Daemon, was a lord of Dragonstone and the son of Lord Daemon Targaryen. Aerion was the husband of Valena Valerian, and the children were Visenya, Aegon the Conqueror, and Rhaenys Targaryen. Aerion was also rumored to have been the father of Orys Baratheon, although whether that could actually be proven or not is unfortunately no further information is available. However, this also would consider to be an interesting factor of how this next house to be established would be the House of Baratheon. Rise of the Stormlands, Storm King Argilic, first in his name, founder of Stormlands, King Argilic the Arrogant, House of Baratheon. In this one now, though there is no actual connection to him of the House of Targaryen, there is a legend about Argillic Durrandon, also known as Argillic the Arrogant. King Argillic Durrandon, also known as Argillic the Arrogant, was the last Storm King from House Durrandon, who reigned in the Stormlands before the conquest by Aegon I Targaryen. When he was a boy, King Argillic turned back a Dornish invasion. Towards the end of the Century of Blood, he joined the Great Alliance against the Tigers from Volantis and led a host into the disputed lands, marching against an army from Volantis which was attempting to retake Myr. 20 years later, he killed King Garth the Seventh, Gardener of the Reach, in the Battle of Summerfield. Harren the Black, the King of the Isles and the Rivers, was nearing completion of his massive castle Harrenhal and was said to be looking for more conquests. Argillic had grown afraid of Harren and so proposed an alliance with Aegon. It is believed he wanted to create a buffer zone between the kingdom and Harren's. He offered the hand of his daughter, Argella, in marriage, as well as dowry lands, though much of the lands were in fact in the possession of Harren the Black. Aegon refused and instead offered the hand of his best friend and rumored bastard brother, Orys Baratheon. Argillic took this as a grave insult and had the hands of the envoy cut off. He sent them to Aegon with a message of, "These are the only hands you will receive." Aegon called his banners and took counsel with them and his sisters. Then Aegon sent ravens to the rulers of the Seven Kingdoms. He informed them that there would only be one king in Westeros. Those who bent the knee would keep their lands and titles, but those that did not he would destroy. King Argillic refused to submit. After landing and proclaiming himself Lord of the Seven Kingdoms, Aegon named Orys Baratheon the Hand of the King and sent him with Rhaenys to take Storm's End. Though Orys met with some setbacks, he continued to march on Storm's End. King Argillic refused to be trapped inside his castle like King Harren, so he came out to meet the invaders. He attacked Orys' force while a huge storm raged in what became known as the Last Storm. Argillic outnumbered Orys' army 2-1 and outflanked it, but Rhaenys and her dragon, Meraxus, stopped them. Orys came face to face with Argillic and slew him in single combat. In order to reward Orys, Aegon gave him Argillic's lands and the hand of the dead king's daughter. Orys kept the banner, honors, and words of House Durrandon. So, we now go to Orys Baratheon. Orys Baratheon, known as Orys One Hand, was the founder of House Baratheon and was the first Lord of Storm's End, after House Durrandon. He slew the last Storm King, Argillic the Arrogant, married his daughter, Argella, and became the first Lord Paramount of the Stormlands. Orys is also considered the first Hand of the King, serving Aegon the Conqueror. The appearance and character is that Orys had black hair and black eyes. After the loss of his hand, he became crabbed and bitter. This is Aegon I the Targaryen, known as Aegon the Conqueror. Aegon I the Targaryen, also known as Aegon the Conqueror, and Aegon the Dragon, was the first lord of the Seven Kingdoms and king of the Iron Throne, having conquered 6 of the 7 kingdoms during the conquest. He was the founder of the ruling Targaryen dynasty, or Westeros. In his appearance and character, Aegon was tall, broad-shouldered, and powerful in appearance, with purple eyes and short-cut silver gold hair. He was very charismatic and commanding. During his conquest, he typically wore a shirt of black scales to battle and wielded his Valyrian steel sword, Blackfire. His crown was a simple circle of Valyrian steel set with big square cut rubies. Aegon was seen as an enigma. He was a solitary person whose only friend was Daenerys Stormborn. He was a great warrior who wielded a sword called Blackfire, but only rode his dragon for battle or travel and never entered tournaments. He remained faithful to his sisters and left governance in their hands and only took command when necessary. While he was harsh with those who defied him, he was generous to those that bent the knee. Early in life, Aegon was born on Dragonstone in 27 BC to Lord Aerion Targaryen and Lady Valena, sometimes pronounced Valerian. He had an older sister, Visenya, and a younger sister, Rhaenys. According to Valerian and Targaryen tradition, Aegon married within the family. However, instead of taking only one sister as wife, as had been common, he married both of them. Aegon had claimed the dragon Valerian for his own prior to his marriage. Aegon was born in the later half of the Century of Blood, during which Volantis attempted to expand their power, as they saw themselves as the rightful heirs to the remains of the Valyrian freehold. The other free cities rose up against Volantis, and when Pentos and Tyrosh asked for his aid in their struggle against Volantis, Aegon flew to Pentos atop of Valerian to meet with the Prince of Pentos and the city's magisters. Aegon next flew to Lys, where he burned a Volantine fleet before it could attempt to invade the city. Shortly after, Aegon returned to Dragonstone. The Conquest. While the Century of Blood came to an end, Aegon's intent in Westeros grew. He had previously visited the citadel of Old Town and the arbor in the Kingdom of the Reach with his sister Visenya, and might also have visited Lannisport in the Kingdom of the Rock. A huge wooden table cut in the shape of Westeros, with a map painted upon the surface. No borders were painted upon the painted table. However, as Aegon believed, it should be one realm instead of 7. Storm King Argilic Durrandon reached out to Aegon, proposing a marriage between Aegon and his only daughter, Princess Argella. All the lands east of the God's Eye, from the Trident to the Blackwater Rush, were offered as her dowry. Even though the lands did not belong to Argilic, the offer was an attempt to create a buffer between his own kingdom and that of Harrenhal. Aegon spurned the offer, stating he had no need of a third wife, and offered his close friend and rumored bastard half-brother Orys Baratheon instead, in return for lands. Insulted, Argilic cut off the hands of Aegon's envoy and sent those back to Dragonstone, upon which Aegon called his counselors together. After 6 days of counseling, Aegon sent forth ravens to every lord in Westeros, declaring his claim to the throne. Aegon landed with his army on the eastern coast of Westeros, at the mouth of the Blackwater Rush, where he constructed the wooden Aegonfort. House Rossby and House Stokeworth surrendered to him quickly, and House Luton and Darkland were quickly defeated in the first battle. Making use of their 3 dragons, Valerian, Meraxes, and Vagar, Aegon, Rhaenys, and Visenya conquered or subjected 6 of the 7 kingdoms of Westeros. Only Dorne remained untaken. Aegon established the Riverlands as a separate region from the Iron Islands and placed them under the rule of House Tully. Aegon chose to date the beginning of his reign from the day the High Septon anointed him in Oldtown. Rather than ruling from Oldtown of Dragonstone, Aegon chose to make his seat King's Landing. The new settlement growing around the Aegon fort, he also took the swords of his defeated enemies, forging them into the Iron Throne. Aegon also created the offices of the Small Council, as well as that of the Hand of the King, with Orys Baratheon becoming his first hand. In 2 AC, Aegon finally turned his attention to the Iron Islands. The Ironborn had been fighting for 2 years over the kingship. Aegon landed on Great Week with Valerian and a war fleet to deal with the contenders. Aegon personally cut down Corin Wolmark, while the priest King Lotus walked into the sea, drowning himself. The other contenders quickly bent the knee. Aegon ignored the suggestions of making the Ironborn vassals to the Tullys of Riverrun or the Lannisters of Casterly Rock, as well as the suggestion to exterminate the Ironborn by Dragon Flame. Instead, Aegon allowed the Ironborn to name their own lord paramount, for which the Ironborn chose Viken Greyjoy. The First Dornish War. Aegon turned his attention back to Dorne in 4 AC. The king launched a new invasion, hoping to complete his conquest. The First Dornish War lasted 9 years and knew many deaths and tragedies. One of these tragedies was the capture and mutilation of Aegon's friend and Hand of the King, Orys Baratheon. Following his release from the 2-year captivity, Orys returned home, taking a sword hand, as did the men who had been taken captive with him. Aegon, intent on revenge, released his dragons and burned the castles of the defiant Dornish lords. Yet the greatest loss Aegon faced was the death of Queen Rhaenys Targaryen at Hellhole in 10 AC, when her dragon Meraxes fell from the sky with Rhaenys upon her back. When a shot from a scorpion took her in the eye. The 2 years that followed are known as the Dragon's Wrath, as Aegon's wrath after Rhaenys' death knew no bounds. Aegon and Visenya placed boundaries on the heads of Dornish lords after Rhaenys' death, and in turn, the Dornish put bounties on the Targaryens. Aegon and Visenya were assaulted on the streets of King's Landing, and if not for Visenya and Darksister, they would have been killed. The attack led to the forming of the elite royal bodyguard known as the King's Guard in 10 AC. Visenya personally chose the men herself. The First Dornish War came to an end in 13 AC. The 10th conquest of Dorne was called to an end in 13 AC after a visit from Prince Daria Martell, daughter of Prince Nolan Martell, the ruling prince of Dorne. She brought the skull of Meraxus and a letter with her, which was given to Aegon. After reading the letter, Aegon flew on Valerian to Dragonstone. He returned the next day and agreed to a peace between Dorne and his kingdom. Aegon would keep up good relations with Princess Dina, and is known to have visited Sunsphere together with his eldest son, Aenys. Further reign. The remaining 24 years of Aegon's reign were peaceful. He spent much of his time consolidating his power by traveling throughout the Seven Kingdoms and building his capital at King's Landing. During his rule, he tread carefully with the faith of the Seven so they would not oppose him. Aegon built a grand set on Visenya's Hill and agreed to the construction of an even grander one known as the Sept of Remembrance on Rainey's Hill. King's Landing initially lacked walls, and the likely reason is that the Targaryens likely believed no one would attack a city which housed dragons. However, when he learned about a pirate fleet sacking tall tree towns in the Summer Isles in 19 AC, Aegon came to the realization that he and Visenya were not always in the city. As such, he ordered the construction of massive walls to be built around the city. Construction began in 20 AC and was completed in 26 AC. Toward the end of his reign, Aegon decided that the Aegon Fort was not a suitable seat for a king. The structure was torn to the ground in 35 AC. Aegon moved his family and court back to Dragonstone, while he commanded the construction of what would later be called the Red Keep. Visenya was placed in charge of building the Red Keep, and it was rumored that Aegon had done this so that he would not have to suffer her presence on Dragonstone. The Iron Throne remained at the build site instead of Dragonstone, since it was too heavy to be moved. The Sons of the Dragon. In 7 AC, Aegon became the father for the first time when his younger sister, wife Rhaenys, gave birth to a son, Aenys. However, Aenys was a sickly boy, and Rhaenys' death in 10 AC shattered. Aegon grew desperate, and there were worries about whether or not Aenys would live. As Aenys had trouble with health, there were rumors that he had been fathered by a singer instead of Aegon. However, when Aenys bonded with his dragon Quicksilver, his health improved and the rumors faded away. As Visenya by then had not gotten pregnant yet, some believed she was barren and suggested to Aegon that he should take a new one. Although many young women were presented to Aegon, the king refuses to take them to the guard. In 11 AC, Queen Visenya announced her pregnancy and gave birth to Aegon's second son, Maegor, this next year. Aegon raised Aenys at King's Landing and took him with him on his progressions. Occasionally, he let Aenys train with his Valyrian steel sword, Blackfire. Lacking daughters, he married Aenys to a cousin, Lady Alyssa Valerian, the daughter of his master of ships. In 22 AC, Aenys would have 6 children with Alyssa, 5 of whom were born during Aegon's reign. In his death of 33 AC, Aegon made his final progression throughout Westeros, during which he visited Winterfell. Afterwards, Aenys and his children would make the progression in Aegon's stead. 37 AC on Dragonstone, while telling his 2 eldest grandsons, Aegon and Viserys, tales of his conquest at the Painted Tables. Aegon died from a stroke at the age of 64. Aegon was cremated on Dragonstone, and his funeral pyre was set aflame by Vagon. Although Aegon's reign had largely been peaceful, many of his subjects desired to go back to the days of old, when there were still 7 kingdoms. Others wanted vengeance for the deaths of their loved ones in wars, and others saw the Targaryens as abominations. Because of this, the reigns of both Aenys and Maegor were tumultuous and filled with battles and chaos. The Small Council under Aegon I. Although the Small Council would only be formed during the reign of Aegon's grandson, Jaehaerys I, Aegon had established his counselors early on. The following members are known as Hand of the King, Grand Maester, Master of Coin, Master of Laws, Master of Ships, and Lord Commander of the King's Guard. Quotes by Aegon. From this day forth, there would be but one king in Westeros. A king should never sit easily. The sun sets, your line shall end. By Aegon Targaryen. Then there were quotes about Aegon. Aegon the Conqueror brought fire and blood to Westeros, but afterwards he gave them peace, prosperity, and justice. By Daenerys Stormborn. Aegon once stood here as I do, looking down on this table. Do you think we would name him Aegon the Conqueror today if he had not had dragons? Stannis Baratheon to Davos Sea. Titles earned. The titles earned by Aegon the Conqueror as follows. King of all Westeros. King of all Westeros was a title assumed by Aegon the Conqueror when he was first crowned at the Aegon court by his sister wife Daenerys Stormborn. This title, along with that of Shield of his People, was dropped when Aegon was crowned at the Starry Sept of Old Town as King of the Andal, the Rhoynar, and the First Men, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms and Protector of the Realm. Shield of his People was a title assumed by Aegon the Conqueror when he was first crowned at the Aegon court by his sister wife Daenerys Targaryen. This title, along with that of King of all Westeros, was dropped when Aegon was crowned at the Starry Sept of Old Town as King of the Andals, Rhoynar, and the First Men, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms and Protector of the Realm. King of the Andals, Rhoynar, the First Men, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms. Lord of the Seven Kingdoms is the title claimed by the ruler of the Seven Kingdoms of Westeros, whose seat is the Red Keep in King's Landing. The title is frequently preceded by that of King of the Andals and the Rhoynar and the First Men, and the king is usually the protector of the realm. The Lord of the Seven Kingdoms is advised by the Hand of the King and the Small Council. In history, after landing at the mouth of the Blackwater Rush, Aegon the Conqueror was crowned by his sister Visenya as Aegon, first of his name, King of all Westeros, and Shield of his People. When Aegon was anointed by High Septon at Old Town's Starry Sept, after the War of Conquest, he was named Aegon of House Targaryen, the first of his name, King of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms, and Protector of the Realm. Despite claiming authority over all of them, the Kings of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men did not rule all seven kingdoms until Dorne joined the realm during the reign of King Daeron II Targaryen, however. Protector of the Realm is one of the three titles held by the ruler of the Seven Kingdoms, along with the King of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men, and Lord of the Seven Kingdoms. The title seems to be of a military nature, referring to the overall command of the king of the armies of the Seven Kingdoms, as it has been held by regents in case of infancy or incapacitation of the ruling king. The king may also renounce the title and grant it of his own accord. Lord of Dragonstone. In short, Aerion Targaryen, son of Daemon, is the father. Aerion Targaryen was a lord of Dragonstone and the son of Lord Damien Targaryen. Aerion was the husband of Valerian, sometimes pronounced Valerian, and their children were Visenya, Aegon the Conqueror, and Rhaenys Targaryen. Aerion was also rumored to have been the father of Orias Baratheon. Valena, or Valeria Valerian, is the mother House of Valerian. Valena Valerian was a member of House Valerian and the wife of Aerion Targaryen, Lord of Dragonstone, and the mother of Visenya Targaryen, Aegon the First Targaryen, and Rhaenys Targaryen. She was half Targaryen herself through her mother, and as of yet, unidentified member of House Targaryen. Valena was a relative of Daemon Valerian, Aegon's first master of ships. Visenya Targaryen. Queen Visenya Targaryen was the older sister and wife of King Aegon I Targaryen. Her younger sister, Rhaenys, was married to Aegon as well. Visenya was a dragon rider and rode the dragon Vhagar. Her appearance and character, like her siblings, Visenya possessed the classical Valyrian features: long, silver gold hair, which she often braided or bound up in rings, and purple eyes. Hers was a harsher, more austere beauty than her sister, Rhaenys, a voluptuous, sensual, and passionate woman. Visenya was also stern, serious, and unforgiving. Some claim that Visenya dabbled in dark sorceries and played with poisons. Visenya was both a dragon rider and a warrior, comfortable in both silk and in ringmail. When garbed as a warrior, she always wielded the Valyrian steel longsword, Dark Sister. In history, in her early life, born on the island Dragonstone, Visenya was the eldest child of Lord Aerion Targaryen and Lady Valena, sometimes known as Valerian. Her two younger siblings, Aegon and Rhaenys, were born within a few years following her birth. Since young age, Visenya trained together with Aegon at arms, and she became a skilled warrior. As expected, Visenya was wed to her brother Aegon, following Valyrian custom. However, Aegon took their younger sister as a wife as well. People claim that he wed Visenya out of duty and Rhaenys out of desire. Prior to her wedding, Visenya became a dragon rider, having bonded with the dragon Vhagar. In her youth, Visenya was reported to have visited the citadel of Old Town and Lord Redwyn of the Arbor together with her brother David. The Conquest. When her brother Aegon began his conquest of the Seven Kingdoms, Visenya sailed with him from Dragonstone. Visenya subdued House Stockford, and following the defeat of House Darkwind in battle against Aegon and his bastard half-brother Orias Baratheon, did not hesitate to claim the riches of Duskendale, greatly swelling the coffers of House Targaryen. After having conquered a dozen houses, Aegon was crowned king. Visenya, now queen, placed a Valyrian steel circlet on Aegon's head, while their sister Rhaenys hailed him as the new king of Westeros. Following the coronation, Visenya accompanied the Targaryen fleet to Gullatown and the Vale. When the Arryn fleet sunk a third of the Targaryen ships and captured many more, Visenya descended from the sky upon Vhagar, burning their ships. Next, Visenya was sent to Crackclaw Point by Aegon. The local lords had learned of the fate that had befallen Harrenhal at Harrenhal and submitted quickly, swearing oaths of fealty. Visenya took them as her own men, and from that day forth, the lords owned their loyalty directly to the Iron Throne. Visenya met Rhaenys, Aegon, and the Targaryen host at the Stone Step, from where they raced south. There, they met the combined hosts of the Reach and the Westerlands in battle. Visenya and her siblings fought from Dragonback, setting the dry grasses and stands of wheat on the battlefield of fire. With more than 4,000 men dead from the fire and tens of thousands wounded by the flames, the battle became known as the Field of Fire. King Mern the Ninth, Gardener of the Reach, died in battle, and King Loren the First, Lannister of the Westerlands, fled, giving the Targaryens the victory. According to legend, Visenya thanked the gods that Loren had ridden forth to face the Targaryens on the Field of Fire when she saw Casterly Rock, as she believed that Dragonfire would not have been able to dishearten the Lannister king if he had remained inside the rock. Visenya had taken an arrow in the shoulder during the Field of Fire, but soon recovered. Following the surrender of King Loren, the three Targaryen siblings parted ways once more, but met soon again at the banks of the Triton, where they awaited the host of King Torrhen Stark. After Torrhen bent the knee, Visenya parted from her siblings and returned to the Vale, where House Arryn had strengthened their defenses. A strong host had been positioned at the Bloody Gate, and the garrisons of Stone, Snow, and Sky had been tripled. However, Visenya bypassed these hosts by flying up to the air upon Vhagar's back. She landed in the courtyard, where she was met by the boy king, Ronald Arryn. Ronald's regent and mother, Lady Shara Arryn, surrendered the heirs to Visenya. First Dornish War. Visenya fought alongside her siblings in the First Dornish War, which lasted from 4 AC to 13 AC. After Rhaenys died in Dorne in 10 AC, Visenya and Aegon, grief-stricken at her death, set every castle, keep, and holdfast in Dorne ablaze at least once, with the exception of Sunspear and its Shadow City. They also placed bounties on the heads of the Dornish lords. Although half of a dozen and more of those lords were killed by assassins, only 2 of the killers lived to collect their reward. In retaliation, the Dornish lords hired cat spawns themselves. Visenya and her escort were once attacked in King's Landing, and she cut down the last would-be assassins down herself with Dark Sister. At another occasion, in 10 AC, Aegon and Visenya were attacked on the streets of King's Landing, where Visenya's actions saved Aegon's life. Aegon argued that his guards were still sufficient for his protection. Visenya drew Darksister before the guards could react. She had cut Aegon's cheek, pointing out to him that his guards were slow and lazy. This event led to the birth of the King's Guard. Visenya molded the vows of the King's Guard upon the vows of the Night's Watch, and selected the first 7 members herself. In 13 AC, Princess Daria Martell arrived in King's Landing in 13 AC with a delegation from Dorne to discuss a peace with her. She brought the skull of Rhaenys dragon, Meraxus, which was still received by Visenya. Daria and Aegon eventually reached an agreement, striking a peace which ended the war. Motherhood. The day-to-day governance of the realm was often led in charge of Visenya and Rhaenys and Aegon's counselors. Rhaenys' death in Dorne in 10 AC shattered the house of her son Aemon, and people began to doubt as to whether he would live, as Visenya had not yet gotten pregnant by Aegon, despite more than a decade of marriage. Some had come to believe that she was barren, and even went as far as to suggest to Aegon that he should take a new wife. Although many young women were presented to Aegon, he refused to take another throne. 11 AC, Visenya announced she was pregnant with a son, and the next year she gave birth to Aegon's second son, Maegor, on Dragonstone. Visenya raised Maegor on Dragonstone. She gave him her Valyrian steel sword, Darksister, as a name day present when Maegor turned 13. In 23 AC, as Aegon's first child, Princess Rhaenys was born. Within a year of Rhaenys' birth, Visenya Targaryen proposed a betrothal between her son Maegor and Rhaenys. To settle the issue of the royal succession, as Rhaenys' birth had sparked a discussion about who was next in line behind Aenys, his own daughter, or his brother. However, the High Septon protested and suggested his own niece, Lady Cersei Hightower, as a bride for the young prince instead. Visenya's relationship with Aegon, which had never been a warm one, grew more distant. When Aegon in 35 AC had the Aegon fort torn down so they could start building the Red Keep, Visenya was left in charge of the construction. In his histories, Archmaester Gildane states that it was suggested at court that Aegon had left Visenya at King's Landing so that he would not have to endure her presence on Dragonstone. In 39 AC, Visenya's son Maegor shocked the realm by taking a second wife and married Alyce Harroway. Visenya officiated the wedding for lack of a septon. The outrage that followed resulted in Maegor being sent into exile. When King Aenys I abandoned King's Landing at the start of the Faith Militant Uprising and fled to Dragonstone, Visenya counseled him to burn down the Starry Sept in Old Town and the Sept of Remembrance in King's Landing. Aenys, incapable of making a firm decision, instead fell ill and chose not to heed her counsel. Visenya took over his care. For a time, his health improved. Aenys suffered a collapse when he learned his son, Aegon, and daughter, Rhaena, were besieged in Craighall, and he died 3 days later. As soon as Aenys was buried, Visenya then mounted Vhagar and flew to Pentos to retrieve her son Maegor from exile. Maegor claimed the Iron Throne. Visenya accompanied him to King's Landing, where she challenged anyone who denied Maegor's right to rule, which resulted in a trial of 7 between Maegor and the warrior's sons. Though severely injured, Maegor was the only survivor. Between 42 AC and 44 AC, Visenya held Aenys' widow, Alyssa Valerius, and Aenys' two youngest children, Daenerys and Elisande, as hostages on Dragonstone. When Visenya died on Dragonstone in 44 AC, Alyssa and her two children slipped away from the castle in the confusion. They took Visenya's Valyrian steel sword, Dark Sister, with them. Angered by their escape, Maegor's third wife, Tiana of the Tower, tortured Alyssa's eldest surviving son, Prince Viserys, who had been kept under a keep to death. After Visenya's death, it was suggested that she had caused Aenys' sudden death, causing some to call her a kinslayer and kingslayer. Rhaenys Targaryen. Queen Rhaenys Targaryen was the youngest sister of King Aegon I Targaryen, the first Lord of the Seven Kingdoms. Both she and her older sister, Visenya, were married to Aegon, and it was said that she was Aegon's favorite. Through her son with Aegon, Aenys I, the line of the Dragon Kings continued, with 15 of the 16 Targaryen kings being direct descendants of Rhaenys and Aegon. She was a dragon rider who rode the dragon Meraxus. In her appearance and character, Rhaenys was a beautiful woman with silver golden hair, which she kept long and wore loose and a slender body. She was kind-hearted, graceful, playful, curious, impulsive, and given to flights of fancy, with a mischievous aspect of personality. She loved music, dancing, and poetry. She loved flying even more. It was said that she spent more time flying on her dragon than her siblings did combined. In history of her early life, Rhaenys was born on the island Dragonstone to Lord Aerion Targaryen and his wife, Lady Valena, sometimes known as Valeria Valerian. She had two older siblings, Visenya and Aegon. Although according to Valerian marriage customs, Rhaenys' brother, Aegon, was expected to marry his eldest sister, Visenya. He took both his sisters to wife. People claim that he had wed Visenya out of duty and Rhaenys out of desire. Prior to her wedding, Rhaenys became a dragon rider, having bonded with the dragon Meraxes. During Aegon's conquest, when her brother Aegon began his conquest of the Seven Kingdoms, Rhaenys sailed with him from Dragonstone. She and Visenya were sent to secure the submission of the castles nearby. Rhaenys flew on Meraxes to Rossby, which yielded peacefully to her. After having conquered a dozen houses, Aegon was crowned king. Rhaenys, now queen, hailed him as Aegon, first of his name, king of all Westeros, the shield of his coup. After Visenya placed a Valyrian steel circle on Aegon's head. Within days of Aegon's coronation, the Targaryen armies were sent out again. Rhaenys upon Meraxes accompanied Elias Baratheon and the greater part of the Targaryen host on their way to Storm's End in the Stormlands. As they were crossing the Windwater, the Targaryen host was come under attack by the force of Lords Errol, Fell, and Buckler, all bannermen to Storm's End. More than 1,000 men were cut down before the attackers faded back into the trees. Rhaenys answered the attack by unleashing Meraxes upon them. As a wall of fire swept through the woods, the trees turned into torches. Lord Emerald died, but Lords Fell and Buckler survived to send word to Storm's End. King Argilac Durrandon, having heard of the death of Hor in the burning of Harrenhal, decided to march from Storm's End to meet the Targaryen host on the field, refusing to burn in his castle as Harrenhal. Rhaenys on Meraxes witnessed how he departed from Storm's End and returned to the Targaryen host with a report on Argilec's numbers and dispositions. At the start of the battle, known as the Last Storm, a fierce storm began. The Durrandon host charged thrice during the battle. The third time, they were able to break through the Baratheon center, but next found themselves face to face with Rhaenys and Meraxes. The Knights of Argilec's personal guard, and Dickon Morrigan, and the Bastard of Blackhaven, commanding the vanguard, were engulfed in dragonflame. The war horses fled in terror, and chaos ensued. Argilac was met in battle by Elias Baratheon, and was slain by him in single combat. With the Storm King dead, Rhaenys accompanied the host to Storm's End and flew upon Meraxes into the castle to parley with Argilac's daughter and heir Argella. Although Argella refused to surrender the castle, the garrison eventually yielded both Argella and Storm's End to Elias. Rhaenys met Visenya, Aegon, and the Targaryen host at the Stony Sept, from where they raced south to face the combined hosts of the Reach and the Westerlands under the command of Loren I Lannister, King of the Rock, and Ninth Gardner, King of the Reach. Rhaenys and her siblings fought from Dragonback, setting the dry grasses and stands of wheat on the battlefield afire. With more than 4,000 men dead from the fire and tens of thousands wounded by the flames, the battle became known as the Field of Fire. King Mern IX died in battle, and King Loren I fled, giving the Targaryen the victory. Following Loren's surrender, the three Targaryen siblings parted ways once more, but met soon again at the banks of the Triton. They awaited the host of King Torrhen Stark. After Torrhen, then the Knee, Rhaenys parted from her siblings and traveled to Dorne. She flew over the red mountains of Dorne, ignoring the Dornish spearmen at the Prince Pass, and landed at Vlath. She found the castle empty and abandoned, while only women, children, and old men remained in the town located next to the castle. Rhaenys next flew to God's Grace, the seat of House of Targaryen, and the Titan town, but there too, men and Lord were away. Rhaenys eventually arrived at sunset. Only the 80-year-old Maria Martell, Princess of Dorne, remained. Maria told Rhaenys to inform Aegon that Dorne would neither fight nor kneel and would have no king. Rhaenys warned Maria that the Targaryen would return and departed sunset, leaving Dorne to only unconquered kingdom. Reign of the Dragon. Following Aegon's coronation at Oldtown by the High Septon, Rhaenys, Aegon, and Visenya took residence at the Aegon Fort in King's Landing. Aegon often left the day-to-day governance of the realm in the charge of Rhaenys and Visenya and his counselors. She was responsible for the rule of sex established by Rhaenys, while Aegon was on a progress. This law declared that only 6 blows were allowed to be struck by a husband to his wife as punishment for her infidelity. 1 blow for each of the 7, save the stranger, as the cause of her rule had been a husband's who had struck his unfaithful wife 100 times, causing her death. The queen declared that the man had struck his wife unlawfully 94 of those times, and the dead woman's brothers were allowed to punish the husband equally. In addition, Rhaenys urged Aegon to make it unlawful for the Ironborn to steal women throughout the 7 kingdoms. During the early years of her brother's reign, Rhaenys often aided Aegon in his efforts to win the respect of his vassals and the small folk. The small folk were a special concern for Rhaenys. She was fond of singers and bards as well. She also arranged marriages between far-flung houses. Among these marriages was the marriage of the daughter of Lord Torrhen Stark to Ronald Arryn, the Lord of the Air. However, letters can be found at the Citadel which suggest that Torrhen only agreed to this match after much protest, and that his sons, who did not agree with the Targaryen rule, had refused to attend the wedding. It was said at court that Aegon spent 10 nights with Rhaenys for every night he spent with Visenya. On the nights that Aegon was not with her, Rhaenys surrounded herself with comely young men. It was rumored that she also entertained some in her bedchambers. Rhaenys gave birth to Aegon's eldest son, Aerys, in 7 AC. However, Aenys was weak and sickly as a young child. He cried often and refused to nurse from wet nurses, nursing only at his mother's breast. This caused rumors that he had not been fathered by Aegon, but possibly by one of the singers and mummers Rhaenys associated with. The rumors would persist until after Rhaenys' death. First Dornish War. In 4 AC, Aegon I began a new campaign against Dorne. Rhaenys led the first assault on Dorne, seizing castle and burning Planky Town while approaching Sunspear. However, the Dornish lords once again refused to give open battle and abandoned their seats. While Rhaenys and Aegon eventually reached Sunspear, Princess Maria Martell, as well as most others, had fled. Rhaenys and Aegon gathered the few courtiers and functionaries who had remained behind and declared themselves victorious, proclaimed that Dorne fell under the rule of the Iron Throne. Rhaenys and Aegon returned to King's Landing, leaving Lord Rossby as Sunspear's Castellan, while giving Lord Hardin Tyrell the charge of a host to fight the last revolts. However, they had barely reached the capital when the Dornish revolted with extreme rapidly, leading to the deaths of both Lord Rossby by the hand of Princess Maria herself and Lord Tyrell, who vanished in 5 AC with his army while marching to Sunspear to retake the castle. Entire garrisons were put to the sword, and the knights in charge were slowly tortured to death. The next few years of the war became more and more violent. The Targaryens returned to Dorne to unleash their dragons, and the Dornish responded with fire of their own. In 10 AC, Hellholt, a bolt from a scorpion, pierced Meraxes through the eye. The dragon fell from the sky with Rhaenys on its back, destroying half the castle. It is not certain whether Rhaenys outlived Meraxes. There are those who say that Rhaenys lost her seat and fell to her death, while others claim that Rhaenys was crushed to death beneath Meraxes in the castle yard. A few accounts claim that Rhaenys survived the fall and died a slow death, being tortured by the Eulers. Due to the uncertainty about Rhaenys' exact death, history records that she died in 10 AC at Hellholt in Dorne. Her body was never returned to King's Landing. Legacy of Rhaenys' son Aenys was 3 years old when she died. Always weak and sickly, the death of his mother shattered the boy, and there were doubts as to whether he would live. He even went back to crawling around as if he were a baby. However, when Aenys was given the hatching dragon Quicksilver, his condition quickly improved, and as the dragon grew, so did Aenys. Additionally, bonding with the dragon ended the rumor that he had not been fathered by the other. The 2 years that followed Rhaenys' death were later dubbed the Years of the Dragon's Wrath. Re-sticking at the death of their sister, Aegon Visenya set every castle, keep, and holdfast in Dorne ablaze at least once, with the exception of Sunspear and its Shadow City, placed bounties on the heads of the Dornish lords. The war would last until 13 AC, although a grand sept had already been constructed on Visenia's hill. King's Landing, the Sept of Remembrance was later built on the Hill of Rhaenys as a memorial to the Queen. As William finished the scroll, Daenerys then asked William, "So, do you have any thoughts, William? It was quite the start of your history, although not much is said about the the fact that the other one lost her life while falling with her dragon was carried a sad tale, and nobody ever really tried to search for her body or anything. No, although no one's for certain. The Dornish usually keep secrets, and even if they did find it, they would have had in their history, in any case, that we invaded their country and they owe us nothing. Well, there must be some way to maybe trace where she had fallen or something to, I don't know, find her remains. Well, it has been said that they do ritualistic mummification, but whether this is certain or not, I do not know. Why? What were you thinking, William? Well, I know I can't do much now, because the visionary said that I have a destiny to help you get that which is rightfully yours. Yes, that is true. And so when I do get what is rightfully mine, did you have something in mind? Well, in my world we call it archaeology. Archaeology. What is this? Well, it's where we search for things that have been lost through time. Sometimes we're successful, other times we're not. We have found, through the ages of time in our world, certain mummifications of people that once existed long ago. They were cared for and respected, of course, and though I wouldn't agree with it, they have been put on display, but at other times laid to rest in a more better place. Perhaps, if I should ever remember it, and there is no wars because I can't go back to the world where I came from. As I spend the rest of my days, perhaps I could talk to the Dornish people. I've got to meet them. They are ones not to be trusted, William. I understand. But I feel it's something that at least I could say I tried. Perhaps they might know something or be able to help out. Maybe I'll find out a way of making an exchange with them. I can't say much now, Daenerys, but it gives me something to think about. In any case, you kind of remind me of her, or she reminds me of you. But really, well, you were curious about me when I first came to your world. That's why, thinking about how she asked him about the first kiss and how when females mated with males of his world, and quickly decides to change the subject. I think you need another scroll. Yes, all right. I won't go let my thoughts wander off. So she gets up and goes and gets another scroll from the library.